2 goes into 6 3 times. So you have 3 times -1. Can't forget that negative there. So you have -3b. Oh, clean that b up a little. Okay, 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 6 twice. So you have 2 times 2 up here, which is 4. Okay, so now once we have all of our fractions gone, we just go ahead and solve for b. Okay, so you can add 3b to both sides. But those two cancel each other out. So you have 6b minus 3 equals 4. Let me lower that arrow a little bit. Okay, so we add 3 to both sides. So that's 6b equals 7. Divide both sides by 6. Anything divided by itself is just 1. So b is equal to 7/6. All right. Any questions on that one? All right. Oop. Try not to have my shadow lingering over it. Leave that up for a few more seconds. Okay, so now we're going to do the ones with the decimals. And to do that, we're going to have a little bit of a shortcut. All right. So, solving linear equations with decimals. Okay. Now with this one, you want to remember that if you multiply a decimal by 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, you're going to move the decimal place to the right the same number of zeros that you have. So if you have 1.583 times 10, you're going to move the decimal to the right once. That's going to be 15.83. So if you have 1.583 times 100, then you're going to move it twice since you have 2 zeros. So that's going to be 158.3. Now if you multiply it by 1,000, you're going to move it 3 times. Which is 1,583. Multiply by 10,000, you're going to move it 4 times. Which is going to be 15,830. Because if you move it 4 times, you're going to move it 1 extra time, and you're going to fill that in with a 0. So let me kind of erase that 0 there. Okay, so this is key for the shortcut, so you won't have to burn as much time multiplying your decimals. Okay, so let's say if we have say for example, you wanted to solve negative 0.9a minus 52.42 equals negative 2.3a minus 59.42. Okay. Now, without the shortcut, you just have to add 2.3 or add 0.9 to both sides. Then you'll be dividing decimals and all of that, and it's kind of lengthy. So the first thing you want to do, you want to pick the term that has the most decimal places. So with the most decimal places. Okay, so these two have 2 decimal places. So the most you have are 2 decimals. Okay, so if you have 1 decimal place, you're going to multiply every term by 10. If the most you have are 2, you're going to multiply every term by 100. If the most you have are 3, you're going to multiply every term by 1,000. So depending on how many decimal places you have, that's how many zeros are going to follow that 1. Okay, so since you have 2 decimal places at the most, you're going to multiply each term by 100. There are at most 2 decimal places. So multiply each term by 100. Trying to see if I can avoid that gleam of sunlight. And the reason you picked 100 is because you have 2 zeros. So you have 2 zeros for 2 decimal places. Okay, so now that would give you 100 times negative 0.9a minus 100 times 52.42. Uh-oh. Here we go. Equals 100 times negative 2.3a minus 100 times 59.42. Okay. So remember, when you multiply it by 100, you're going to get the decimal and move it over twice. So if you move the decimal twice over here, that will end up being negative 90, because you're going to move it once, twice. So negative 90a. Here, you're going to move the decimal twice. So it'll be minus 5,242 equals, here you're going to move the decimal twice. So if you move it once, twice, it's going to be negative 230. So minus 230a. Here you're going to move the decimal twice. So it'll be minus 59.42. Okay. Now you have bigger numbers, but they're not decimals. You can kind of live with these. Does that make sense? All right. Okay. Now if you multiplied each one by 10, you wouldn't have moved this over far enough. So you still had a decimal number. If you multiplied them all by 1,000, you would have had even bigger numbers, which would have made it harder to manipulate. So you want to pick just the perfect amount of zeros. Okay, so now here you just solve for a. Okay, so if we add 230a to both sides, so 230 minus 90, 140. I knew that. So 140a minus 5,242 equals negative 5,908. and 42. Okay. So we add 5,242 to both sides. Where those two cancel each other out. Oops, move that up a little bit. Trying to get it out of the glare of the sun. It wasn't there a few minutes ago. Okay, so you have 140A equals 700, it looks like.
It'd be negative 700.
I was testing you. Yep, negative 700. So now you just divide both sides by 140. Anything divided by itself is just 1. So you have A equals negative 5. Kind of straighten that up a little bit and still avoid the sun. All right. Yes.
How did you get the sum number?
Oh, we negative 5,942 plus 5,242. Okay. Any other questions on this one? Okay. So the easiest way to solve linear equations with fractions and decimals would be to get rid of the fractions and the decimals. That's the easiest step to it. I mean, there are other ways to do it, but this is, to me, the easiest. All right. Yes.
So like when you wrote that out,
Mhm.
it kind of worked out really good, so you had a nice number at the end. But
Mhm.
homework, there's stuff that like, you gotta do long division by hand, and I don't really remember much of that. You didn't go over anything like that.
Yeah, the problems on the test gonna be with the giant long division, because I ran into that too.
You shouldn't have. Let me see if I can find one similar to that one.
They're supposed to be doing this without calculators, right?
Yes. So you shouldn't have any lengthy long division problems on the exam. A lot of the homework problems, they just kind of randomly generate them. So I may look at them and go, okay, these aren't too bad. But then when they change the numbers around, for you, it may be a little different. So with some of the longer problems on the homework, like if it's a big long division problem, you probably won't see those on the exam, especially since we have a limited amount of time. So I wouldn't throw one of those at you, having you chew up 10 minutes on one problem. All right. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Oop. Let's see if I can. All right. So let me. That's a good one. Human still writing. Okay. Okay, so let's say we wanted to solve negative 1 times 1.4 s minus 6 equals 2s minus 28. Let's draw a line through my s so they won't look like 5s. Okay. Now with this one, since it's just a whole number, we can go ahead and distribute the negative 1. Okay, so negative 1 makes that negative 1.4s. Negative 1 times negative 6 is just plus 6 equals 2s minus 28. Okay. Once again, the easiest way to deal with a decimal problem is to get rid of the decimals. So the highest number of decimal places you have is just one decimal place. The rest of those are whole numbers. So since you have just one decimal place, you multiply each term by 10. So at most, one decimal place. That looks a little bit messy. So multiply each term by 10. Since it's just 1 0. Alright. So that means you will have 10 times negative 1.4s plus 10 times 6 equals 10 times 2s minus 10 times 28. Okay. So 10 times negative 1.4 will move that decimal over one time. So you have negative 14s. 10 times 6 is 60. Equals 10 times 2 is 20, so you have 20s. 10 times 28 is minus 280. Okay. So now we just go ahead and solve for s. So subtract 20s from both sides, or you can add 14s. Either one would work. Where these two cancel out. So you have 34, negative 34s plus 60 equals negative 280. If we subtract 60 from both sides, it gives you negative 34. I swear I didn't hit you with that pencil lead, did I? Oh, okay. Negative 34s equals 28, negative 280, and negative 60 is negative 340. Divide both sides by negative 34. Anything divided by itself is 1. Let me move that up. So you have s equals 10. All right. So any questions on that one?
No, can I just have a second to write down?
Oh, sure. Actually, that's the last example. So it'll be up there for a while. All right. So did everyone sign in? All right. Okay. So if you signed in,